Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Now think about your daily social media feed for just a second. It's kind of crazy, right? Just a fast-paced blur of selfies, vacation snaps, constant status updates, perfectly curated milestones. We are literally flooded with the digital footprints of our friends, family, and, let's be honest, total strangers. But today, we're going to flip the script. We are turning our attention to the invisible. We're looking at the people who leave absolutely zero digital footprint whatsoever. No selfies, no life updates, just total radio silence. Let's unpack the fascinating psychology behind people who just don't post their photos. Right off the bat, I love this quote. In a world that rewards visibility, their silence stands out. It's an incredibly powerful thought, isn't it? Because we live in an era where, honestly, attention is currency. Society's constantly pushing us to maintain this vibrant, hyperactive digital presence just to prove we exist or to prove we're happy, to prove we're successful. And yet, there's this entire subset of individuals who actively reject that pressure. They opt completely out of the visibility game. And that leaves us with a really compelling mystery. Why? All right, part one, the silence amidst the noise. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this. Why do some people leave literally zero digital trace? And to be clear, we're not talking about people who just forgot their passwords or, decided to take a random week off from scrolling to do a digital detox. We are talking about individuals who make a conscious, deliberate decision that their personal life, their face, and their experiences just do not belong on a public server. Period. To a super hyper-connected person, this can almost seem suspicious, right? Like, it's strange. It really begs the question, what is happening beneath the surface to make someone totally disengage from that giant digital popularity contest? Well, here is the very first major misconception that we really need to clear up. Silence is not always a symptom of social awkwardness. I think we often rush to assume that a lack of photos means someone is insecure or, maybe they don't like how they look, or they're just deeply, hopelessly introverted. But psychology reveals something entirely different. For a lot of these non-posters, their digital silence isn't a deficit. They aren't hiding. Actually, scratch that. It's more like it's a manifestation of a much deeper, hidden psychological strength. Moving on to part two, choosing privacy over popularity. So the crucial point here is how we actually define privacy in the digital age. It's a conscious, behavioral choice that signals strong personal boundaries and really high emotional intelligence. People who don't post aren't failing to play the game. They've just realized they don't actually need the game's rewards. They don't crave that fleeting dopamine rush you get from a like or a comment. Instead, they value the sanctity of their real-world experiences way over the perceived value of digital popularity. It is absolutely a hallmark of profound psychological boundary setting. Which brings us to our next section, the core of inner confidence. Now, what's really interesting here is this concept of emotional security. It's defined as possessing a deeply rooted sense of self-awareness and identity completely without the need for constant external validation. Basically, when you don't post your photos online, you're essentially telling the world, I know exactly who I am, and I definitely don't need an audience to confirm it. These individuals draw their confidence strictly from within themselves. Their self-worth isn't bouncing up and down based on an algorithm's reach or a follower count. They're just deeply anchored in their own self-awareness, which makes them incredibly emotionally secure. Okay, let's look at part four, deep thinkers versus performers. And this brilliantly illustrates that exact divide. On one hand, consider the deep thinker. They understand human nature, they're highly self-aware, and they are emotionally secure enough to just exist. Simple as that. Now contrast that with the performer, whose behavior is heavily driven by this craving for constant attention and a total reliance on external visibility just to feel validated. It's this massive contrast between the quiet, grounded reality of the non-poster and the chaotic, visibility-obsessed digital world that, let's face it, most of us get totally swept up in. Which leads perfectly into our next section, escaping the digital illusion. By stepping away from the keyboard and just keeping their camera roll to themselves, non-posters successfully evade the pressure of constant exposure. They completely sidestep that incredibly toxic cycle of social comparison, where you're constantly measuring your messy behind-the-scenes life against everyone else's polished highlight reel. And they just completely abandon the exhausting pursuit of creating these curated realities. They are literally avoiding severe negative psychological effects simply by choosing not to participate in the illusion at all. Ultimately, the whole shebang is about protecting your identity from the burnout of constant visibility. While the rest of us are out there trying to build these complex, heavily curated online avatars, the non-poster essentially chooses to create with Stickman, stripping their public digital identity down to the absolute unbothered bare minimum. And because of that, their real-world mental health remains totally intact and untouched by public opinion. They understand something profound about the human mind that most of us completely overlook. Our brains literally were not built for constant global exposure. By withholding their photos and life updates, they're actively protecting their energy and keeping their sense of self whole. And finally, part 6, rethinking your digital footprint. So I want to leave you with this final, absolutely vital question. Are we posting for connection, or are we just performing for approval? The people who leave no digital trace really challenge us to examine our own boundaries. Honestly, the next time you go to upload a photo, take a beat and ask yourself who you're really doing it for. Is it actually adding value to your life, or are you just feeding that performer inside you? It's a highly provocative thought, and one that just might change how you engage with the digital world from here on out. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, stay curious.